Hi, everyone. This is I Love Myself Fix presents Coming Into Grace, a new podcast hosted by a mother and son duo at Courtney's Fix and at Asha's Fix. And today we're joined by Markell. How's your day been, Markell?
Yeah, my day's been good, man. Asking. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you guys taking the time to interview me and ask me some questions. So I'm ready to go.
Before we even get started, man, you look at that T-shirt. I want to see the T-shirt.
Yeah, my wife got this T-shirt for me. I think it was last year, Father's Day, where it says "Husband, Daddy, Protector, and Hero." And they kind of stood and kind of gave me a little speech about what I mean to them and how all this ties in together. I know it's a shirt that you could buy online at other places, but she said when she saw it, it really meant something to her, being my wife, because she sees me in all of these roles and more. And then my daughter chimed in, who is 7, she'll be 8 in December, and she talked to me as well about what it's like being her father to her. So it was real nice, real touchy. I'm not too much of an emotional guy, so I didn't cry or anything like that, but very sentimental. Got to my heart pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to cry. It's all happening inside under that T-shirt.
This is definitely.
So beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
Would you share with us what you do for a living, or whatever form of that you feel like sharing?
Yeah, I'm kind of split person. I say that because I still have a corporate job. Currently, I'm assistant manager at a truck company. I've been there for about a year and some change, but my passion has always been sports. I've been a basketball fanatic since birth. I've played basketball since high school, college, a little bit of semi-pro. I was blessed to have the opportunity to coach, which is what I'm real passionate about in terms of being able to coach young men and women on the court and off the court. I kind of see that as my way of giving back to the next generation of community. So daytime, I'm at work, corporate America, collecting a 9-to-5 job. Nighttime, I'm coaching and training, doing skills development, things like that in terms of basketball for all athletes. I've done younger athletes, including my daughter and my nephew. I've got high school teams that I've coached. I've even got to college, a Division III JUCO school where I recently coached. So I got a wide mix of people that I encounter and I come in contact with. So approach them differently, learn about them differently. But that's really where my heart is as far as coaching and teaching the next generation.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Uh-huh. Don't want to see my basketball skills. I have the layup like Fred Flintstone. It goes ba-boom, 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 and then it goes off and goes somewhere else. I was always a good shooter though, because we had a hoop in our yard growing up, and we used to play horse. And then we had like a wall and a fence. Man, I mean, I could outshoot any of them because there was always money on the line. But I couldn't play. I couldn't play for anything.
Shooter, that's half of the game right there. So you still could be used on a team.
I did. My 3-pointers were down. I was determined to beat my brother under any circumstances.
Well, my daughter, she's gonna have that same challenge. I know she's 7 years older than my son, but he's already taking a liking into basketball because he's watching what I do with her. So I already know that competitive level is going to come into them at some point in time. So hopefully she's as good a shooter as you say you are. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, hopefully.
Notice I put that little caveat at the end. He didn't let me ride on that. How's it been for you through this process, through the last few months, through all that's been happening with the pandemic, with I don't even know what to call them, to be honest. I mean, there's so many words for it, but I would say probably the best thing is the time for change. That's what I'm going to call it.
Well, it's It's been extremely difficult. Being African American in these times right now, everything that you do is a challenge. Um, and if we pause for a second as far as the protests and police brutality and things like that's coming on, we also got COVID to deal with, where it came out and now it's forced everyone to be trapped in their homes. And I don't like to say the word trap, but to be in their homes. A lot of people is not used to that. Luckily, my family and I, we've been in situations like that before when there was times that I wasn't working or my wife wasn't working, so one of us was working, something like that. So we always spent a lot of time in the house together. The children, my daughter had a little bit more of a difficulty being in this pandemic because she's so used to waking up every day, going to school, learning, and then having fun with her friends and things of that sort. So it's been a challenge for us to try to keep her spirits high, try to keep her entertained, try to keep her happy, a smile on her face. One of the biggest things for me as far as just being a father, and my father did an amazing job in my opinion as far as how he raised myself and my two other brothers. And he did everything that he could with what he knew. You see what I'm saying? So throughout the years of everything that I've learned from him and other male influences that I see as father figures or uncles and things like that, my job for me is to always make sure my daughter has the best day every day. And that's something that I work hard for, that every single day she has the best day. Even if sometimes some days are challenging, she may cry this day for some reason or whatever the case may be, but she has the best day. So we've been just trying to make sure we do all that, do the schoolwork. We've been blessed to be in this house that I have here. So we got a little yard in the back, which is another congratulation I like to do myself because I didn't have a yard growing up. So being the fact that my daughter has a yard, she can go outside and play. That's a great achievement for me being a father. So we got basketball courts I've purchased, soccer stuff I've purchased to get her physical activity in and play games and run around. We look up different things now, like science projects. We bought her Play-Doh before. It actually messed up. So she went online herself and YouTubed how to make Play-Doh. So that was like a science project that we took on together as far as making Play-Doh. My wife helped tremendously with that, all hands down. She's great at everything that she does as far as with the kids and stuff. So things like that as far as just trying to stay vibrant, staying alive, keeping our head high as far as in this pandemic. Now, when we switch a little bit and we talk about coming from this pandemic, in this pandemic, to the state of the culture of African Americans and what's happening right now, that's a double dose. We actually just had to have that talk with our daughter as far as what it's like to be Black in America. Not to say that I've always shielded her or kept blindfolds on her as to what America really is like, but I try my best, like I said, to make sure that she's happy. So a lot of things she wasn't really understanding and encountering until we actually sat down and gone through it with her. To be at a school where police officers walk by and say hello to you, and then to see constantly over and over again this video of a man putting a knee on a police officer, putting a knee on a man's neck. Her question was like, why is he doing that? Like, that's not, I didn't think police act like that and things of that sort. So we had to open that door and have that tough conversation. And again, I'm not emotional, but that brought tears to my eyes. Having to sit here and talk to her, then for her, the question that hit me was, so what happens if I die because I'm Black? And that's what she asked me as a 7-year-old, So we really had to have a heart-to-heart. I really had to express that I would do everything in my power, including lay my life on the line so that she doesn't have to deal with anything. But in the same breath, we talk about how we need to educate each other and educate her as far as the history and what's happening now and what we need to do as African Americans to try to have a better future so she can have a better future, for her brother to have a better future. So my wife and I talked a lot. We consulted our pastor, we're very spiritual, so we talked to our pastor and my brothers and things of that sort. We kind of had like a family Zoom and talked things out a little bit, but it's a handful. To simply say, it's a handful to be living in today's time. But with faith, again, we're spiritual. We stay prayed up with knowledge and trying to do the best we can to make it better tomorrow.
You know, it's I'm going to go to when the children were little. I have a daughter as well, and when the children were little, I used to have them when we were near police because of these circumstances, but years ago, of course, because he's 20 now. I used to always have them walk up to the police and say hi or wave at them. And I remember the children wondering, you know, they were always like, why? You know, and they were little. I mean, they were like, I don't know, how were you, like 6, 7, 8?
Yeah.
And then, you know, they would, you know, they would comply. And it was always fascinating when that happened, watching how long it took the policemen to smile and wave back. And it would take them a long time. Like, I would watch this whole process go over their face, and sometimes they wouldn't wave back. And I can't speculate. I'm not putting anything on why they did or didn't.
Yeah.
But what this leads to, though, is then with time, watching my children, of course, grow. And so where before there was a wave, and then there's a point in which they no longer wanted to wave at all, which hurt. And it didn't hurt in the sense of it hurt in the sense of what a shame, if that, you know.
Yeah.
Because they're there to protect. And so, and that they're there, they should be there as a point of refuge. So you should be able to wave and know that if danger's behind you, you want to run toward them to help you from danger. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, as time moved on, you know, and my son kept getting taller and taller and bigger, then, you know, things changed. And I remember the day when he told me, and he was like, you know, with not the cleanest words, you know, he's like, I'm not dealing with them. And for me, and it's not like I'm not oblivious, it's not like I don't know, it's not like I don't, you know, but in my heart, it was like, what a shame, you know? It's like, what a shame, you know? And he actually, and I didn't even know I was going here, but he actually was hit by a car a few months ago. He was walking across the street, was hit by a car. And he was on a scooter. And fortunately, the scooter took most of the brunt. And that person, and he flipped over the car. He went over the car. And I believe that he wasn't as damaged as he could have been because he's in yoga and he's in rugby. So he moved, I think he just sort of rolled and you know, but he calls me on the side of the road and he's like, I've just been hit by a car. And then as that happened, I was like, well, where's the person that hit you? Well, that person rolled off and left him there. And then from there, I'm like, did you call the police? And then he was like, no, I'm not calling the police. And so, you know, he didn't call the police. So then I get there, I go get him. And then the next day I take him to the police station because no matter what, it should be reported. And we should be able to go to the police station. The police, it's still a hit and run. And my son was still hit. And it was that dance was very trippy in
Yeah,
that police precinct
yeah.
because, you know, one, here we are together. Number two, I mean, he had cuts and things and he had some bruises, but really not enough for them to understand how he could still be standing. And then somewhere with enough convincing after a little while, then they realized that we were telling the truth. And then they went and made a record. And then they were like, show us where it is and da da da. But it's like if you think that someone is out for your life, and then that's also the someone that's supposed to potentially keep you alive.
Mm.
And I don't know. And I don't even know what made me. There's something, I don't even know why I shared that story today.
No, first I want to say, thank God, you know, he's all right. You know, that type of situation, it caused an accident because it was an accident, maybe, but shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be in that position where you're uncertain whether I want to get the police involved or not. And I think that's where, for African Americans, that's where we are now. It's like the job of a police is we need to report a crime. We need to report something that's happened to you guys for you guys to come and do your due diligence and protect and serve. But now when we have to question what you're going to do when you get here and how we might be treated, now we are in this position where I don't even know, you know, if I really want to get involved with the police because of what they might turn around and do to me. And to go back to what you're saying about, you know, when they were younger, I grew up in a rough neighborhood in Philadelphia where police officers would come by and they would patrol. But I do remember times where a couple of them will come out the car, and I was probably like 9, 10, and we'll be outside shooting on a crate or something like that. And they'll ask for the ball and shoot. And, you know, they'll check on you. This is like during summertime, so it's not like we were in school or anything like that. But the older I got, the less and less I seen those type of police officers doing those type of things. In my mind, the old Scruff McGruff commercial, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It just comes to mind about, you know,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be on your side, report a crime, call for a crime, and things like that. But you see less of that. You see less of them coming around, making their face known in the community, and you see more of the opposite. So again, that's just part of the tragicness that's happening nowadays, as far as like, if I see a crime, whether it's happening to me or not, who am I supposed to call? Because I'm not exactly sure how the police is going to come and do their quote unquote job. I can't even tell you what their job is nowadays, because they're locking up the wrong people. They're throwing people to the floor. I saw a video where the store owners called the police because they were getting robbed, and the store owners looked like you and I. And when the police got there, they started to put handcuffs on the store owners. And it's like, the store owner is talking to the cops and saying, "I'm the one that called. And they're, get on the wall." Da, 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 da. It's like, what? So what do we do now? What do we do now? Who do we call? So I totally understand that situation.
You have a question?
Yeah. Through this, what would you have liked to have told your younger self to maybe, I don't want to say deal with, because you shouldn't have to deal with the world, but to like,
Be prepped.
yeah, be prepped or be
Hey,
prepared. You know what I mean? Just what would you have told your younger self?
so if I could like write a letter to my younger self telling him about the future that he's going to walk into, I would do a couple of things different, in all honesty. I would tell him to educate himself more. I probably would tell him to go to a HBCU as far as a college selection. I would tell him to be prepared for picking a side. I think there's a lot of us that are still in limbo and are in the middle, more willing to protect their own stuff than to fight for the cause of everyone. And there's not like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've had the discussion with my wife that I'm prepared to fight for the cause, even if that means leaving my corporate job, even if that means safely barricading my home or sending her somewhere else with the kids or anything like that, because I'm not too sure the safety of what my house is going to be like now. Being at marches and rallies, like I'm prepared for that type of stuff now. I wish I had knowledge and I learned more about the 13th Amendment, which I'm doing research and stuff on now. And I'm in my 30s. So I wish I knew these type of stuff before. And I would also tell my younger self to be more vocal. I had a couple friends, had a couple people I could speak to. I was into music back in the day, so I used to write music and things of that sort, but I never really pushed it for multiple audience to hear. So I would have changed that a little bit and told myself to write the truth, write what's going on, write what's happened in the past that hasn't changed, and be more verbal. Don't just sit here and wait for someone else to take that step. You be prepared to be that person and take that step. So those are some of the things I would tell myself. And I would tell myself those exact things because I'm currently doing those exact things right now. I'm using my podcast. I'm using my Instagram. I'm using come in encounter with other people to just spark conversation, to say certain things, to interact dialogue about certain topics that I probably wouldn't have said before. I'm doing more research. I'm watching more documentaries, all these things that I believe I should have done at a younger age, which I've done some, but I'm doing them now. And just for your listeners and yourself, being a young man too, you've been through school, I've been through school. Educate your friends, educate your other brothers and kings, and tell them the stuff that they're listening to and reading in school is not the full story. Gotta do more research and get the other stories that are not being told in these books. And I think that's the whole thing people are saying now, to unlearn and relearn, because we're learning from these schools and these teachers who are giving us this curriculum. And at a certain point, they stop and they don't want to talk about certain things anymore. But that's make up who you are. You got to know where you come from to know where you're going. So that's a tough question, man. That's a tough question.
You answered it really.
You answered it very well, and you've hit you hit some points, many points actually, that we have talked about, that we have talked about in so many respects as a family. And I went to Spelman and I went to Clark for grad school, and my mom was like a Pan-African Studies major. So we just had a library of books. And I've read a considerable amount, I think, of information. I wouldn't say I've read it, but I've read a lot. And there is this point, and we talk about this, is that, and maybe because I've watched just too many, I love Westerns. A lot of people don't. I don't know why. I love them. I love how that there seems to be a good guy and a bad guy, but the good guy's never really good and the bad guy's never really bad. And that there are all these sub-racial, cultural things going on. I love that there's all this open space to think about it. I love a good Western because there's not a lot shooting out in front of you. There's so much right there. But I think because of that, for me, I always have maintained, you always must be prepared to draw a line. You must always, and you must know where your line is.
Yeah.
And I've gone through that with my children, and I've had some people laugh at me like that. Why do I maintain that? But there is always, there's a part of me that always maintains almost like a homesteader perspective, that there may always be a point where something needs to be battened down, like you're saying, where something needs to move, that you need to understand that there are times that your children should not be near you for you to take care of something that you need to take care of. And that's a very old world or a very non-American perspective. We used to do that years ago as Black people. We did that. We sent our children away for something bigger and better, whether it was for education, whether it was for safety, whatever the reason was. And we don't do that really anymore. And there was a time in my own life when I was dealing with a lot of tragedy and change. And, you know, my son, he had gone to boarding school. And with my daughter, I needed her to live with a friend for a little while because I needed to make sure that what I was doing inside of me was moving in the correct direction. And many people around me were like, you know, not many, because I don't talk to many people, never have, but but those few, they were like, and I'm like, you must always know as a family what it is that you stand for, what are your values, and what it is that you're willing to fight for, and be clear about that. And so I don't even know, I normally don't even really talk in these interviews, so I don't know what it is about you.
You're doing
I normally don't even say much of anything, but there's something about you. But I appreciate your words, and I appreciate what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And I know he asked you about, it was set up in the sense of what it's a letter in the past, but what you are doing right now is fantastic. What you are doing right now is incredible, because there's a whole bunch of people who will not do what you're doing and are not clear about it. And clarity is the most important thing. And so I just wanted to say, I can't believe.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I do want to say I love the mother and son direction that you guys are taking. I wasn't aware that you have a daughter, but I don't know if you've done this yet, but have her on the show as well. I like this because families that stick together, families that talk the same language, families that have the same views are the ones, to me, that normally move in the same direction. So I just want to say, keep doing what you guys are doing. Take a listen to my podcast. My podcast is titled Say What You Want Podcast. We are on Spotify and Apple right now. So do a family type podcast, sort of similar to you guys. So it's my wife and I, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law's brother and his wife. So it's a collective of us, and it started off by us Saturdays after church. We would go to who we call Grandma's house, and we'll sit and eat. And then the conversation, the topic always sparked off, and it was always good back and forth. And we all are family, but we have different views. And that's something that's also important, that a lot of people think that African Americans all have the same view, the same perspective, and things of that sort. And I want to say that's why they kind of treat us the same, because they think we all think the same, and we're all very much different. So just I wanted to say, keep doing what you guys are doing, let your voice be heard, and have the topics you have and ask the questions that you ask. That was a really tough question. I never really thought about it like that, writing to myself. But, you know, keep it up, guys. I really appreciate it.
You know, it's funny what you said about the difference of views. I had a friend not so long ago who is not African American, and then she was asking about HBCUs, and then was sitting there, and then she's like, "There's no diversity," and I fell on the floor. And then she was like, "What's so funny?" I said, "Lordy B, you have no idea how much diversity exists on one campus with people." And I said, who cares if we're all African American? I was like, first of all,
we're not even all African American. There are Africans.
Well, right. And I was like, and then there are people who, you know, just regionally is different, just socioeconomically is different, just, I mean, educationally is different, just whether you're Caribbean, you know, whether your family is coming from Africa, I mean, there are all these things, rather just simply, did you, go to a prep school? Did you not? Did you have a job? Did you not? Is your hair long? Is it short? Like, there's just all these things that come into play where there's so much diversity that people have no idea that as you end up on these campuses at an HBCU, that you are then meeting people in a way, but you must present yourself and they must present themselves. And I mean, it's a phenomenal, of course, I couldn't go on. There's a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, my parents are from the Midwest. So, and I grew up in California.
Oh, wow.
So, for them, they didn't know anything about HBCUs. And they were the first in their families, both of them, to go to college. So, and when our time came around, they sent my sister to Fisk. So my sister went to Fisk. And then, I grew up with like a California girl, like, I'll call myself out. And so then they were like, you better fill out the Spelman application. I'm like, no, dude, like, I'm not filling that out. And they're like, yes, you are. And so when the Spelman application showed up and that letter showed up and the other ones, they snatched that one out of the mail. And that was it. Like, I was like, okay. And then my brother, a little different. He was always trying to be a little extra militant. So then they sent him to Ivy League. And then he used to call himself like the maddest black man on earth, which was ridiculous. He wasn't, but he thought he was. So, but even in that respect, that there's just an amazing amount of information to learn. And you can't learn it all, of course, but the fact that you are interested in learning, because what I've found is that so many people are dead. So many people, I don't have
to say dead. But
well, I'm sorry. He thinks I'm so extreme when I say that. To me, when you decide to not change your health, when you decide to not learn anymore, to me, when you decide to be emotionally unavailable, you have chosen to die. So, and I don't even know why I'm so hyped tonight.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. No,
there's there's a lot of people who it's like a blank stare in front of them. They have their values, they have, their point of view and things of that sort, but there's not an engine, in my mind, there's not an engine running for them. And whatever celebrity, superstar, or whatever somebody says, hey, this is what we're doing, they just go ahead and follow suit. All right, this is what we're doing. And there's not a sense of ownership as entitlement for their own life as to what are you going to stand for? What are you moving for? What are you fighting for, if anything at all? So, yeah, there's some people, like I said, that are dead. Some people, I just say they have a blank stare. There's nothing going on up there, but they just want to follow whatever some people are doing, whether they following the right or the wrong. But you got to have something inside. You got to have something pushing you to do something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still maintain, my whole thing is, if you are not in forward motion, you're dying.
Right.
That's just how I feel.
Like a shark.
You know, so tell us if you would, Markell, what are a few things about yourself that you find really special, or some of your gifts that you are willing to share?
I'm brutally honest. This has been a little bit of an issue, I would say, in my marriage, because I have some male friends, but I have female friends as well. And most of the female friends come to me with either relationship problems or just questions in general. And I told her, I believe they come to me because I'm blunt and I say exactly what I'm thinking. And that's also a problem because I'm not as sensitive as I need to be when talking to certain people, but a lot of my friends tell me that's why they come and ask me stuff, because they know I'm going to say it just like how I feel and what I'm thinking. My wife, even in our marriage, I say some stuff to her, then it might take me a minute or two, and I'm like, I meant that, but I could have said it a little softer, whatever the case may be. But I'm very honest. I'm brutally honest, regards to the topic of conversation, whether I feel like I'm right or I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm always open to learning and understanding what it is that I didn't know to maybe change my thoughts. I'm very outgoing. I like to have a good time. I like to have fun. I don't see life as bam, 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 bam. I see life as do this, structure, organization, but you got to have happiness in there as well. So doing things to make myself happy, doing things to make my family happy, which is another big thing for me. As long as my wife and my kids are good, I feel like I'm good. So I'm a big family person. I'm that uncle that calls every niece and nephew their favorite, and they all look at me, you just told me I was your favorite, and stuff like that. So, I'm very family oriented. I don't know. I'm pretty simple, I guess. I don't know. I could talk on and on about myself, but that's pretty much it. That's me.
We appreciate it.
I don't think that there's probably much that's all that simple about you, but we'll take that. We'll take that. So I'm going to tell you, it's so funny. I'm only saying this because the room keeps getting darker, but let me tell you what's happening. It's illuminating the words on your shirt, which is really, yeah, it's really funky. Like it is. It's like it's like as you are reinforcing the words on your shirt, it's neat. So, all right. He's laughing at me because I tell you I don't normally say this much. So I want to tell you deeply how much I appreciate your honesty and how much I appreciate your share today and you spending your time with us. If you would please say again about your podcast and how people can hear it.
Yeah, my podcast is Say What You Want Podcast, and everything is spelled out. On Instagram, it's swyw.podcast. And you can get my link from there. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're about 7-8 episodes in. Season 1 is coming to an end. Season 2, we might be doing the visual as well as the audio. I'm still working on that. But it's a family-orientated podcast. We talk about everything under the sun. Religion, culture, everything that's going on right now in life, education, our kids. You'll hear my daughter, my son sometimes in the podcast. So it's very family-based type thing, but it's a great time. Podcast is probably about 45 minutes, so not too long of a listen as well. So good laughs and stuff like that. So if you got a chance, check it out. Let me know what you think.
Okay, we're certainly going to check it out. And then I would, because we're at the end, and I'm only going to, because Markell, you are in the dark, so I'm just letting you know.
I can turn the light on if you want.
Yeah, why don't you just so when we say goodbye. There we go.
I was using natural light, the vitamin D was hitting me, but.
I didn't want to interrupt you because you were flowing, and then I'm telling you, I was mesmerized by the words. So then I was like, I'm going to leave them alone, but I want to be able to see your face when we say goodbye. So if you would, we say at the end of every podcast, if you would lean in and tell the camera and say, I love myself.
I love myself very much.
We love you too.
We love you too, Markell.
Thanks for
For meeting you. I love myself.
I love myself.
All right. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Coming Into Grace, presented by I Love Myself Fix, knowing who you are and loving us for it. See you next time. Thank you, Markell.
Bye, Markell.
you guys.